Khamzat Chimaev is out. Will he ever fight again? Time will tell. But in steps the man that Khamzat Chimaev once knocked out. The only loss on Ikram Aliskerov's record to Khamzat Chimaev. He gets a massive, massive opportunity here, taking on the number 3 ranked Robert Whittaker at UFC Saudi Arabia. Fight night. We're going to go through and give you every single one of our early leans, early picks for every single one of these fights. We'll start it down at the bottom. Pretty decent card overall. Actually pretty pleased with how this card shaped up. First fight of the night, Zhao Long, Chang Ho Lee. We're really not starting it off with a bang because there's no chance in hell you know who these guys are. And I really didn't know who these guys were either. They're fighting for the road to the UFC title. Sometimes I'll watch Road to the UFC, but usually here in the States, you got to wake up at like 5 a.m. to watch it. Most of the time I don't. But if I'm really not doing anything and I really just don't have a life, I'll throw it on. Or at least I'll try to get up and throw it on. But I went back, watched a couple of their fights, looked at some of the stats that were out there, and this is just one that is so weird, man. I mean, you're getting these Asian fighters seem to fight like super similar, and I think these two guys are very, very similarly matched because Zhao Long, he was going up against grapplers that wanted to take him down in his road to the UFC fights. He was able to keep it on the feet for periods throughout the fight and do his work there and win those. Chang Ho Lee, same thing. Going up against grapplers, but the difference with Chang Ho Lee is he was able to finish those fights. I think he finished both of his opponents on road to the UFC, knocked them out. You always get on me for saying finish, but he knocked them out. Zhao Long had a fight on the Contender Series against Christian Quinones, so at least he's got a Contender Series fight. He lost that one, but he outstruck him, and it was a pretty solid fight overall. Like, he had his moments. He's a durable guy. He's got a lot more experience than Chang Ho Lee, like almost 3 times the amount of professional MMA experience, whatever that means, because these guys in China seem to be just, their records are so padded. Like the guy last week, Shaylin Nurdenbeke had like 50 fights. What does that really mean? Because at the end of the day, he still lost the fight. Like, at these Asian fighters, I don't think their experience really means that much, but it is something that is out there. Zhao Long, I think, just won't be able to match the power that's coming at him. I think Chang Ho Lee, if it's on the feet, he's just going to be landing harder. I think the finishing upside for Chang Ho Lee is there. It's one I'm definitely going to have to look in more, but for an early lean, I'm going with the Korean here. Chang Ho Lee for the pick, and we'll move on. Abu Azaitar is not fighting. UFC website, you're trash because this fight has been off for like 4 days. Update your website, okay? It's fight week. Cedriques Dumas is stepping in for Abu Azaitar to take on Denis Tiuliulin. The battle of who's the worst in the middleweight division right here. Well, this was the original battle, but Dumas, I think, is a little bit better than Azaitar. He actually beat him, so that is a very confident thing to say. Cedriques Dumas, man, I think the guy is talented on the feet, and he's constantly getting better. I think he was just super raw when he got into the UFC, and he actually came out to say that his UFC debut against Josh Friend, he was like unbelievably high in the octagon, and that's why he lost. He got subbed in the second round. And if you watch that fight, like there was a good amount of hype on Cedriques Dumas coming into the UFC, and then he just shit the bed his first fight, and we kind of chalked that up to UFC jitters. But he says he was super high in the octagon, and I kind of believe him because he didn't fight anywhere near how he normally fights. He looked super gun-shy. He's picked up a couple wins after that against Brundage and Azaitar, and then he lost to Nursultan Ruzaboyev. So, I don't know. I mean, Denis Tiuliulin is just straight trash. He's a guy that's just, he's tough. He's going to go in there, just wing big hooks, and try to catch you with something. He's unbelievably hittable. Like, you look at his face, you know that face is taking some damage. I think Dumas should be able to pick his shots a little bit better. And Dumas is kind of a calculated striker. Like, I kind of expected him to be a little bit more wild. He's pretty calculated, and he likes to pick his shots. And actually, his wrestling game hasn't looked that bad. And that's going to be a big thing that he can exploit here against Tiuliulin, because Tiuliulin has no ground game. No ground game whatsoever. You get this guy on the ground, you should be able to finish him no matter who you are. Anyone in the UFC should be able to finish this guy on the ground, whether it's by sub or TKO. He's been knocked out. He's been subbed. It's a bad run in the UFC for Tiuliulin. He got brought in on short notice just to fill a spot. He's a guy that they'll throw in there when they need to get somebody a win. And maybe they were trying to do that here for Azaitar, because he's kind of from that region. He's from Morocco, near Saudi Arabia, somewhat. Don't know my geography that well. But I think Cedric Dumas should be able to get a win here. I'll take him for a pick. We move on. Magomed Gadzhiyasulov. You're going to see a lot of this. A lot of last names that end in OV on this card. I can see another one right there. But Magomed Gadzhiyasulov, I believe that's how you say it, and I think I'm absolutely nailing that pronunciation. Gadzhiyasulov. Undefeated. He's from the Kingdom of Bahrain, but he's born in Dagestan, Makhachkala, Dagestan, Russia. Is undefeated, taking on Brendan Ribeiro, who Ribeiro got knocked out cold his UFC debut in a spot where he was like I think he was a slight favorite, like minus 120 favorite. But before that, on the Contender Series, he was a massive underdog. I think it's Bruno Lopez or something like that. And he knocked him out. This dude, Ribeiro, is long. He's tall. He's got a good jab, and he's got a good one, too. The problem with him is he doesn't really have a chin. If he gets hit, he's usually going down. So that's always the red flag with Brendan Ribeiro, but he is dangerous. On the feet, he cracks. He's long. He can keep his distance and hit you from a place where you can't hit him. But it's when guys rush in on him, that's when he gets clipped, trying to wing those long arms out there, and he doesn't connect. Gadzhiyasulov, pretty solid overall fighter. He took on the one and only Jose Medina on the Dana White Contender Series. Where the hell is Jose Medina? Like, Medina got a contract for getting 30-27, and where the hell has that guy been? Did they take his contract away or what? Or did he just have to sit out for a year after the beating he took? I don't know. But, yeah, good all-around fighter here for Magomed. I think he's going to have a massive grappling edge in this one. Ribeiro doesn't have the greatest takedown defense nor the greatest ground game. And I think, Gadzhiyasulov taking the OV in Saudi Arabia, you got to take it. He's the pick. I think he's going to be a big favorite here. But, yeah, I think he should be able to get this one done. Seems like kind of a layup to me for a guy making his debut in the UFC, a Magomed. They're going to give him a guy that's not durable, that really wasn't even supposed to make the UFC. He was a massive underdog, set up to lose on the Contender Series, but he pulled it off. So he wasn't supposed to be there. Got knocked out first fight. I think this is a setup. Give me Magomed Gadzhiyasulov. Kyung-Ho Kang, Muin Gafurov. Gafurov, one of these Tajik guys. Tajik is a market that the UFC has been trying to tap into. We got a few of these guys in the UFC now. And Gafurov, famously known for losing to Chad Hellinger on the Dana White Contender Series, where he was a massive favorite. And Hellinger was like 35 years old or something like that. And Dana was like, I'm not really trying to sign 35-year-olds, but you just beat this dude as a massive underdog. I feel like I have to. So they signed him. And Gafurov went back to the regional scene, got some wins, ended up taking a short notice fight against Castaneda, loses that, and then takes on Said Nurmagomedov and gets subbed in the first round. I think this is a winnable matchup for him because, if you're shooting takedowns on Said Nurmagomedov, you're going to get your neck snatched. I was on that sub prop like flies on shit, bro. Like, that was probably the easiest sub prop I had of the entire year. Kyung-Ho Kang, massive experience edge as far as, UFC level. He's a good all-around fighter, and I think this is just super close overall. I think it's going to be a 29-28 decision type fight where Gafurov's getting takedowns, Kang's hitting him on the feet. Gafurov's a guy that he throws hard. He'll throw, pretty sloppy, wild punches, but they'll land, and he'll get hit, but he's pretty durable. And on the ground, he doesn't really threaten with like a ton of submissions, but he can chain wrestle. And if his cardio holds up here against Kyung-Ho Kang, I could see where he takes 2 out of 3 rounds just based on outworking Kyung-Ho Kang up against the cage. And Kang he can crack, but it's like against who, you know? He's not really knocking out guys that have been super durable, like a Christian Quinones gets cracked all the time. And I don't really see Kang hitting some type of sub on him. So I'll take Gafurov for an early pick. Definitely one I want to look into a little bit more. But first glance off the rip, I'm going to go with Gafurov. Renat Fakhredtinov, Nicholas Dalby. So this one is probably the most intriguing prelim, in my opinion, because Nicholas Dalby's on this tear, man. He's on this tear, and he's 39, almost 40. But he looks like he's in the best shape of his life. Like, he just knocked off Gabriel Bonfim in a fight that he was set up to lose. And it was a finish. He finished him in the second round. Like, just survived the early onslaught from this undefeated Brazilian, like, massive, like, super prospect at the time. And then finished him off in the second round. So, Fakhredtinov, I actually faded him against Zaleski dos Santos, where Fakhredtinov was like minus 400, and I got Zaleski at like plus 300. I know this is a pick show. I'm talking betting odds. Probably shouldn't do that because not everybody knows that. But I faded him. I took Zaleski because I don't think Fakhreddinov's cardio is really that good. And I don't know that his level of competition, like his UFC wins, who are they? You know, like Kevin Lee, it was a shell of himself in there, got that win easily. Brian Battle had no takedown defense, and that's just a perfect matchup for him. Smothered him there, and then it's some Andre Michailidis or something like that. He just doesn't really have that many good wins. And so he takes on a guy in Zaleski who was really good, and I'm like, I'm going to fade him. And then he nearly finishes Zaleski in the first round, wins the second round, and then gets 10-8'd in the third, so it ends up in a draw. I think Renat has super, super sloppy striking on the feet, but it is powerful. So, like, if he connects, it can hurt you. But it's so sloppy that if Dalby is able to push a pace on him, that sloppiness is going to look really, really bad in the second and third round. And that's where Dalby can take over. So, I honestly see Dalby taking a similar approach to this one that he did against Bonfim. Survive early, push the pace on him, and eventually you're going to try to break him. Now, if Fakhredtinov has 2 rounds of cardio in him and he doesn't have a third, you know, then he could just win 2 out of 3 rounds and do it that way. But I'm going to go Dalby here, man. Maybe it's just bait because, you know, you kind of see the same things as in their last fight. But I don't really rate Renat as some great striker. He does have really solid chain wrestling. Like, he'll get you down, he'll hold you there, and you're kind of just smothered at that point. But we saw in the Zaleski fight, if he can't get those takedowns and he's forced to strike with you, it's so sloppy. There's so many openings. And once he gets tired, it's not effective at all. That's where Dalby takes over. Dalby is a tank, too, at 170. He has some great cardio. He's a big dude. And I'm going to trust that his takedown defense holds up here and he can eventually break him out or break him down throughout the fight. So I'm going to take Nicholas Dalby for an early pick. One I'll definitely look into more, but I like Dalby. Nasrat Haqparast, Jared Gordon. This is one I think is going to be very, very close because Jared Gordon is a very underrated fighter. Like, the guy has super clean hands. Arguably should have beat Paddy Pimblett. Good takedown defense, good cardio. He's taking on Nasrat, who I think is just going to be a little bit better, maybe land a little bit harder throughout this fight. And that's why I'm probably going to take him for a pick because more than likely or not, this fight probably plays out on the feet. It's a striking battle, and Nasrat, I think, might have just a little bit more pop in his shots, maybe a little bit more of a durability edge as well. Jared Gordon's been knocked out before. Nasrat got a pretty good chin. He's probably just going to be the more durable guy, being able to take the punches and give them back. So Nasrat Haqparast is the pick, but I could see this being a 29-28 pretty close fight. To the featured prelim, Shara Magomedov, Joilton Lutterbach. If you don't know who this Joilton Lutterbach guy is, let me fill you in. He's a Brazilian guy who I believe trains in Germany. And he's got a lot of kickboxing experience, a lot of combat sport experience throughout a lot of different things. Karate combat, kickboxing, Muay Thai, MMA, a lot of fights. It seems to me like the UFC looked at Magomedov's last fight against Bruno Silva, where he was on his back for a lot of the fight. Still managed to win 30-27, but he was on his back for most of the fight. And they're like, we cannot give him anyone that can grapple. Joelton Lutterbach, probably not going to grapple. Maybe he will this fight just because he sees it as a weakness in Magomedov. And, I think Magomedov is an insanely good striker. For having one eye, I don't know how this guy does it, but his kicks are nasty. His hands are nasty. His timing is nasty. His movement is super nasty. He's an undefeated guy. He's going to come in here against Joelton Lutterbach. He's just going to be the better striker. Lutterbach is good, but I watch his fights, at least his recent fights. Level of competition is just not that good. He's going to be a better striker than most guys that are on the regional scene. He's brought up here into the UFC. I think Magomedov is just going to be a better striker on the feet. So he's going to be the pick. And even if he does get taken down, I don't think Lutterbach's got some great ground game. And Magomedov literally won the fight, won all 3 rounds off his back last fight. So I'll take the Magomedov in Saudi Arabia. To the main card, we got Johnny Walker, Volkan Oezdemir. Very interesting matchup here. I like Johnny Walker. I mean, everybody does. He's funny as hell. Goofy motherfucker. But at the end of the day, this dude don't really got the chin. Just don't really got the chin. And you got to question, how does he win this fight against Oezdemir? Because Oezdemir is a very high-level kickboxer. He's going to be undersized compared to Johnny Walker. Most guys are. Oezdemir tends to be a little bit shorter, not as long of a reach than most of these light heavyweights. But he's still been able to have a great career in the UFC in doing so. I think this fight goes one way. If Johnny Walker can implement some type of wrestling and grappling, then he has a great chance to win. Because if you look at Oezdemir when he loses, it's the guys that can get him to the ground, hold him there, and win minutes. But on the feet, Oezdemir is always going to be live for a knockout, and Johnny Walker just don't have a chin. So on the feet, I'm going with Oezdemir. And I think it's probably going to play out on the feet because Johnny Walker's not a guy that shoots takedowns. More so, he just tries to defend him and stay on the feet, use his length. And at times, he's just not super high volume. I think Oezdemir is just going to be a lot crisper. He's going to play more within himself, and he's going to be able to find Johnny Walker's chin. So early pick, I'm going with Volkan Oezdemir. Muhammad Naimov, Melsik Baghdasaryan. Good matchup here. I mean, Melsik has always been a guy that I love to watch strike. Super, super nice kicks. Southpaw guy, whips that body kick in really quick and throws it up to the head in between those body kicks and those leg kicks. So very fun striker to watch. Muhammad Naimov is one of these guys that he just wins, man. He just wins. He doesn't really look like he does anything that great, but he does have power in his hands. He does have a wrestling game. And he's a durable guy that can push a pace. So if he needs to implement the wrestling here to win against Melsik Baghdasaryan, because on the feet, doesn't matter how much power you got, doesn't matter how much cardio you got. You're not going to win a kickboxing match against Melsik Baghdasaryan at this level. Just not. So Naimov needs to implement some type of wrestling and get this guy tired out, get him off his game, and then he has a great chance to win, which I would assume he should be able to do because Naimov has shown the versatility in his game, going for takedowns against Nathaniel Wood. And he is coming off a first-round finish, but the guy got injured and, he knocked out Jamie Malarkey, though, which, really nothing to get an award for at now. But, Naimov, I think he should be able to win this one if he grapples, and I think he will. So I'll take him for an early pick. Moving on. Kelvin Gastelum, Daniel Rodriguez. This is going to be a good fight. One of these matchups that is perfectly made because we got two strikers, two guys that love the box. But I do give Kelvin Gastelum somewhat of a wrestling and grappling edge, or at least some upside there. I think Gastelum can hold his own in the boxing. Daniel Rodriguez is a guy that throws a ton of volume, especially if he knows you're just going to stand there and, box with him. He's just going to continue to release combinations over and over and over again. He's got good movement. he's a little bit stationary, but so is Gastelum. I think Gastelum, training down at fight ready, he should come into this fight with a good game plan, and he should be able to get a win. If he mixes in the takedowns, that's great. Gastelum's always been super durable. Durability edge is definitely on Gastelum's side. Rodriguez is getting older. He's on back-to-back losses. Just got knocked out by Ian Gary, which Ian Gary's not really, the greatest knockout guy at this point. We've seen him fight Neil Magny. Couldn't get him out of there. We've seen him fight Jeff Neal. Really didn't land anything that big. But, Ian Gary is really good. I will give him that. So it's not a bad loss. But I do think Kelvin Gastelum, if he's not facing a Sean Brady who's going to wrestle fuck him for 3 rounds, is live against a Daniel Rodriguez who's just really going to stand there and box with you. So I'll take Kelvin Gastelum for the pick, and we move on to the co-main event, which I am very excited for because we get Sergey Pavlovich back in action. I thought Sergey Pavlovich was the absolute truth. I thought this dude was going to go down and just run through all the heavyweights because this dude just walks you down, throws everything at you. Big hooks, big uppercuts, and he's fast, and he's got an 84-inch reach, and he had a granite chin. The amount of shots this dude took on his way to the fight against Tom Aspinall, the dude would just take some big shots from heavyweights and not even flinch. But then he got cracked against Tom Aspinall, and he got flatline knocked out. So I'm starting to question Sergey Pavlovich's durability. The upside, though, Volkov, not exactly a big one-shot knockout guy, but he is a heavyweight. And he's long, he's tall, and he can keep his distance. So if Pavlovich is going to continue his game plan of just walking guys down, hands high, just explode with these big punches, Volkov could get caught, but he could also throw those teeps, keep him at range, frustrate him, catch him coming in, kind of like Aspinall did, step off to the side, right hand, bang, right on the chin. Volkov can do that. So this is a matchup that I'm kind of going back and forth. And I believe Pavlovich is a favorite, and I think he's kind of a sizable favorite here, which is very weird. But I do think Pavlovich bounces back here against Volkov because Volkov has notoriously been pretty durable, but I'm gonna take the younger guy, the guy that has been on the rise, lost to Tom Aspinall. Losing to Tom Aspinall, I think, is nothing to hold your head about. So I'm gonna take him for an early pick. But if this betting line, I think he's like minus 225 or something like that right now. If we're talking bets, I definitely want to look to see if if there's value on Volkov here. Because he's so experienced, he's been durable, he's got the height and ability to keep him at range. So Pavlovich is the pick, but definitely one I want to look into more. Brings us to the main event. Now this is a very, very tough one to pick because you're going up against a guy that's unranked, really does not have any good wins, and you're going up against Robert Whittaker, who's one of the best middleweights of all time, the number 3 ranked contender. But something tells me, man, I watched Ikram Aliskerov fight, and I see a lot of Islam Makhachev in him. Not even just the no mustache and a beard from Dagestan thing, but the way that they strike on the feet is very similar. They have really good movement. They throw those teep kicks out there. They keep you at range, and if you come into their void, they're going to explode with a combination, and it's very hard to hit them. So, what does Robert Whittaker do here to beat Ikram Aliskerov? Does he just stand and kickbox with him for 5 rounds? Can he knock out Ikram Aliskerov? Aliskerov's been knocked out before, but if you watch that knockout against Chimaev, that was an uppercut from hell. I don't know that Whittaker really holds that right now because he hasn't been knocking anybody out. And I also have to question Robert Whittaker's recent wins. Paulo Costa, Marvin Vettori, Kelvin Gastelum, who moved down to 170, Darren Till, who got cut. So, there is some questioning you need to do. But on the Robert Whittaker side, obviously, I think if this fight goes into the third, fourth, and fifth, that favors Robert Whittaker. It's kind of the same thing here. But on the Ikram side, I think he's going to have a durability edge because he's younger, he's in his prime, and Whittaker can be a little bit chinny. You know, Duplessis just kind of ran through him. I think he's got the grappling upside as well. I think Ikram's wrestling and grappling game is super high level. We just haven't seen it in the UFC yet because he's knocking dudes out in the first round. I think his hands, he might have the power edge as well. So there's a lot of edges I'm giving to Aliskerov in this fight. The only edge I'm really giving to Whittaker is really the experience, the cardio, maybe the outside footwork. And yeah, other than that, like, I think there's a lot of edge to give Aliskerov in this fight. I guess maybe preparation too, because Aliskerov was supposed to fight last week's card and then had to fly from Vegas to Saudi Arabia. So, you know, short notice, got to go 5 rounds now too. The one thing I do love about Aliskerov is if he sees a finish, he goes for it. Kind of different than like an Islam on the feet. Like if he hurts you with something, he's going to go for it. Or if he sees an opening, he's going to release a big punch. And he normally knocks dudes out that way. So, right now, early pick, I'm going to go with Ikram Aliskerov. Might be crazy. Definitely one I want to watch more film on to see how Whittaker handles this type of a matchup. But I'm going to go with Aliskerov for an early pick. Those are the early picks. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more content. Comment down below what your early picks are. Till next time, hey, Job Picks. We out.